As above, so below, says the Kabbalion. And that truism has become so trite within New Age, New Rage, New Cage spirituality, and within the truther genre as well, as to almost become trite. And I fear that this ancient wisdom is being trivialized. This ancient wisdom is being missed. This ancient wisdom is going right over our collective heads because of the trivialization of it through pop spirituality. And I hope to bring some reverence. I hope to bring some recognition, and I hope to bring some seriousness back to the study of this thought. And I want to thank Wayne Steiger for doing the same thing and for putting me onto this. We're talking about the principles of Hermetics, and this is the principle of correspondence. And with all the yapping that we hear from people about as above, so below, it amazes me that, and forgive me if I'm being a little plain, it amazes me that in all the yapping and all the talking, that they've somehow managed to miss the entire point of the principle of correspondence. And when we're looking for something trite, when we're looking for something catchy, when we're looking for a sound bite, it's very easy to miss, because really the principles of Hermetics are not given to the curious. They're not given to the merely wondering. They're giving to the people that they're given to, and are giving to the people that are looking for a lifestyle and looking for a way of life. And the old Hermetic axiom actually said, as above, so below, as below, so above. And grasping this principle really, it gives you the tools to solve most of the very dark paradoxes that plague us. And it gives you the means to actually understand, ladies and gentlemen, the very hidden secrets of nature. It's not as simple as, oh, let heaven come to earth. It's not as simple as thy kingdom come, thy will be done. That's the dumbing down of it. That's the trivialization. That's the pop spiritualitization, which isn't a word, but that's okay, of what we're talking about. What this thing is really trying to say to us, and what this principle is really trying to get us to understand, is that there are planes beyond our knowing. There are worlds and levels beyond our ability to comprehend. And there are places that we can never probably visually see, although some of us are working towards that ability. Some that we'll never physically go to, though some of us are working towards that ability. And yet, as advanced as we get, there's always going to be things that are just beyond our reach, that are just beyond our sight, that are just beyond our grasp. And the principle of correspondence exists to help us be able to understand things that we really can't understand. The principle of correspondence exists to help us know things that are unknowable to us, to help us to comprehend the incomprehensible, to help us grasp the ingraspable, to help us possess that which can't be possessed. This principle teaches us the universal application and the universal manifestation on the various planes of all of the various planes, the material, the mental, the spiritual. It's a universal law that what we see, we look around here on this plane, and what we see directly corresponds to what is on the other planes. So if we can understand this plane, and if we can understand this life, we can begin to have understandings of other planes and other lives. I remember when I was a Christian pastor, there was a Christian minister, actually, pastor very few times. There was an old saying that says, They're so heavenly minded, they're of no earthly good. And the fact of the matter is, if you are so heavenly minded, you'll never be of any earthly good. And the more earthly good you are, the more heavily minded you are. Because when you begin to understand this plane, when you begin to understand this reality, when you begin to understand and take mastery over this life, you can then begin to understand the other planes and begin to approach mastery there as well. The big problem, the Achilles heel, the thorn in the flesh, if you will, of spiritual practitioners and teachers and those involved in pop spirituality is, should I say it or should I not? They're running away from this world and trying to seek solace in another. They're running away from this plane and trying to seek solace in another. They're not able to take control of this world, but yet they somehow think foolishly, haughtily, arrogantly, that they can take possession of other worlds when they can't take possession of this world. Ladies and gentlemen, the principle of correspondence tells you certain things in very certain terms. If you want to understand this, if you want to understand other worlds, understand this world. If you want to master other worlds, master this world. If you want to master other planes, master this plane. And until you do, you have no possibility of mastering other planes. And until you know how to run your life in this world, you really shouldn't be running your mouth about the next world. Well, Jeff, you talk about earthly things a lot, and you talk about politics, and you talk about physical optimization, and you talk about sleep, and you talk about nutrition. That's because we have to master this world if we want to master the next. The ancient Hermeticists considered this principle the most important mental instrument by which man was able to pry aside the obstacles which hid from view the unknown. Until you know the below, you can never know the above. Somehow we think that we can learn the above and apply it to below. That's backwards. You've got to understand the below. You've got to live the below. You've got to master the below. Why do you think I'm always talking about mastering your body? Why do you think I'm always talking about mastering your sleep? Why do you think I'm always talking about physical optimization and how it leads to spiritual optimization? I didn't even know that I was espousing, didn't even know that I was describing, didn't even know that I was elucidating upon Hermetic principles, and specifically, in this instance, the Hermetic principle of correspondence. Until you master your body, you can never know your spirit or soul, whatever you call it. Until you master your life on this plane, you can never master lives on other planes. And until you're in control of your life here, you can certainly not be in control of any other lives. And you can certainly not give any advice that's worth listening to anybody else that's doing it or attempting to do it. We've got to do the inside job. And guess where the inside job is? It's in this world, in this plane, and in your damn self, cousin. And once you, and think about it, it's so easy to understand once you think about it. And I'm preaching to myself too, because this is coming to me like a ton of proverbial bricks. Why is it always a ton of bricks? Couldn't it be a ton of feathers? Now, they wouldn't hit you as hard, but there'd be more of them, and they'd still be a ton. But anyway, I don't know why that happens, folks. I don't know why my mind goes to those places. It just does. And it's interesting. I go on these rabbit trails, as they're called, and I just found out through Chinese astrology I'm a rabbit. So maybe things do make sense. But if you want to understand the divine, don't you think the easiest way to understand it is to understand you, because you're divine, you're sovereign, you're free? If you want to figure out God, figure out you. If you want to figure out how God feels, figure out how you feel. If you want to figure out how God acts, figure out how you act. If you want to figure out why God does, figure out why you do. You're divine, you're sovereign, you're free, you've got the spark of divinity in you. Why are you searching and reaching and grabbing when it's right here, cousin? And the ancient Hermeticists knew this. And they knew that looking at the here and the now was the way to pry aside the obstacles which hid from view the unknown. And they know that you can even tear aside the veil of Isis and get a glimpse of the face of the goddess if you've got the guts to tear aside the veil of self and glimpse the face of the dark and of the shadow, and to work your way through it, and then you will catch a glimpse of your own divinity, which will help you catch a glimpse of the gods, of the goddesses, ladies and gentlemen. We're way too heavenly minded, and we're no earthly good, and we're no heavenly good because we're no earthly good. We don't even begin to understand the laws of the universe. We don't even begin to understand the arcane knowledge of spirituality. We don't even begin to understand what's going on in other planes. People prattle on about the astral and this and that. They've got no idea because their lives here are a wreck. A wreck. This is a challenge to all of us. Think about, ladies and gentlemen, how the principles of geometry and mathematics are applied that allows us to be able to measure distant stars and measure distant suns and to plot their courses and their movements. And a lot of you Planet X people say, oh, there's a Planet X, as you can tell by the gravity effects on other planets. You know, I'm reminded of the words of Christ. You're so smart that you can read the signs of the heavens. You can look at the geometry and you can look at the math and you can plot the course of Planet X, but you can't understand Planet U. We can plot the course of Planet X, but we can't understand Planet Me. Yes, the principles of geometry and the principles of math do enable us to measure distant suns and their movements while seated in an observatory somewhere. But we never stop to think that a knowledge of the principle of correspondence and a knowledge of ourselves can allow man to reason intelligently from the known to the unknown. By studying the monad, the base, the us, we can understand the archangel and even the divinity beyond. That's the law of correspondence. That's as above, so below. I feel like I was a little bit harsh. But you know what, cousins? Sometimes we just got to be real. And maybe after you've been knocked down a few pegs, it's a lot easier to do so. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty. This is New Cosmic Knowledge. We ask questions, we question answers. Sometimes we have to question ourselves. The principle of correspondence, as above, so below. You want to know heaven, you want to know the other planes, you want to know the other dimensions, you want to know the angels, you want to know the demons, you want to know the gods. Know yourself. Know yourself. Unindoctrinate yourself. Create yourself. Build a life you love. It's self. It's an inside job. Let's get our head out of the stars and out of the skies and get our focus on where it needs to be. We're the last generation of real humans. Let's get busy.